Good afternoon, good evening, everyone, and welcome to today's Telco AI Forum panel, How AI Will Impact 6G. My name is Sylwia Kechiche from OpenSignal. I am delighted to moderate this timely conversation. In case you haven't heard of OpenSignal, we are a telecom insights company, and we work with hundreds of operators, gather billions of data points, and publish quite a few insights and report on the state of connectivity and customer experience. But we are here joined by two esteemed guests, Dr. Alexandros Kaloxylos and Riccardo Guerzoni. Gentlemen, can I please ask you to introduce yourself to the audiences, please?
Okay, maybe I will start. Thank you very much, and thank you very much for the invitation. As you said, my name is Alex Kaloxylos. I'm the Executive Director of the 6G Industry Association. It's a non-for-profit organization placed in Belgium. We are the private side in partnerships with the European Commission for R&D activities and initiatives in Europe. We have been the private side for the 5G public-private partnership, and now we are the private side to the smart network services joint undertaking.
Perfect. And Riccardo?
Hello, I'm Riccardo Guerzoni. I'm the director of the Core Network Group at DOCOMO Eurolabs. So DOCOMO Eurolabs is the center of excellence of entity DOCOMO, the Japanese mobile network operator. And we are based in Europe, and we work on several SDOs like 3GPP, Open RAN, Alliance, ETSI, and so on and so on.
Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen. And AI is often seen as the cornerstone of future network evolution. But what we know is that its success very much depends on quite a lot of foundation in terms of data, trusted models, being energy aware, and very much a collaboration across the entire ecosystem. So we will explore over the next 20-something minutes how AI can serve the network, but also how networks can empower AI and what's the balance we need to establish between the cost and trust, and how does it look like. So without further ado, let's kick off just talking about the vision for AI, and maybe starting with you, Alexandros. So from your perspective, how do you see AI shaping the 6G architecture? So what sort of the most promising use cases are emerging based on some of the research that you're doing across the 400 members? Because you do quite a bit of research, and it'd be good to hear some of the examples of that.
Yeah. Thank you, Sylwia. Indeed, as I was saying, we are the private side in the SNSJU, where we have something like 80 projects up and running these days, with a budget of roughly 500 million euros. So this project, and we have yearly phases now. From the two first phases, what I can report is that we have something like 200 different AI solutions. So the projects have demonstrated that indeed AI is on the cornerstone of the 6G networks. We can group these activities into network management, which includes configuration optimization and healing, network control, security, and also to provide AI as a service. In terms of network management, I would give also quite some focus on energy efficiency solutions. So we all know about sustainability, and part of sustainability is about the energy consumption, and AI has to play a significant role. Most likely, on the short term, I think that this could be one of the things that will be implemented as a solution using AI. So quite a vast array of things covering all the activities of the network.
Interesting. So energy efficiency and sustainability being quite important. That's for sure. And maybe, Riccardo, if I turn to you, can you tell us some of the entity, the DOCOMO Eurolabs activities in terms of contributing to the 6G vision in terms of the AI and open source collaboration, because you involve quite a bit of in those projects?
Yeah, so for what concerns the system architecture of the 5G advanced system, we already started since release 18. So the work in 3GPP started since release 18 on AI topics, both for what concerns adoption of AI technologies for the network, which means AI models within the network functions, or how to deploy and how to support the lifecycle management. And also from the side of designing the mobile network to support services that use AI, like for instance, applications that are AI-based to support the detection of traffic patterns and related allocation of resources within the mobile network, and also how to perform supporting functions that are using federated learning by selecting the user devices that have to contribute to federated learning. And so there is a lot of work that was done in 3GP since release 18. And currently, we are in the early stage of the standardization of the 6G system. So it's something that will start from next week. So it's coming soon, and there is already a definition of the scope, and I think much more will come than it was done so far in 5G Advanced.
Interesting. So you're saying from next week, we're starting to do more work on 6G. So starting 6G standardization.
Yeah, because this week there is the SA plenary that will approve the study item, and that will officially start the work for 6G in system architecture.
Interesting. And let's talk a little bit about data and trust. And Alexandros, you've spoken about the importance of realistic data when we're preparing for this call, and how that data is really important for effective AI model training. So, so how is your organization helping to set standards or frameworks around data collection and benchmarking? Because as we know, AI and models are going to be as good as the data that feeds it, and we have to ensure there's no bias. Because again, we've seen this already a little bit, right?
Yeah, indeed. And actually, we consider that this is one area where more collaboration is needed between the various stakeholders and even the various regions. I mean, in some other activities, we have a huge experience in networking on how to calibrate simulators for the usual operation of the networks. For example, in 3GPP, you will see that there's agreement about the number of the base station, depending on the scenario that you want to simulate, the transmission power, the propagation models, and these kind of things. On the other hand, how to use a specific data set as a tool for benchmarking of AI solutions, this is not yet in place. And also we have seen this kind of data, agreed data for other areas, like, for example, image processing. So if you want to check if a specific algorithm works well in image processing, they have very specific photos which they use for benchmarking. This is something that is missing now. There are some data available in various regions from various initiatives, but still I cannot say that these are the de facto standard that the researchers have to take this and use them to further develop solutions. Usually what the stakeholders are doing, either if they have this possibility, they're using real data to train their models, but they cannot share this data with other stakeholders. So there is some limitation there. So one solution to this is having synthetic data. Now, what we are doing in the context of the SNSJU is that we have asked from the participants, whenever they develop some solutions, to share the data that they are going to use to train the models. And after a while, we are going to process, clean the data, and see which of these could be further used at European level to benchmark the solutions that we are developing. And at the same time, I think personally that this is towards the right direction, but I don't think this is enough. It would be perfect only if we have data where the key stakeholders from operators, vendors, and verticals could, not the real data necessarily, even synthetic data, but they could approve them, let's say, saying that, okay, these data are realistic and they make sense, and people can use this to train their models. Okay. So, please, yeah.
So what do you mean by synthetic data?
Having generator to not use the actual data from a real operator, the real data for the users, because especially in Europe, we are very protective about the privacy.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. So we cannot have access to this, but we can generate synthetic data, meaning data that are close to reality, but have nothing to do with specific users.
So it's a little bit anonymized data, but it still has the real life. characteristics.
It's not anonymized because it's not related to actual users.
Okay, so you
but
can't.
it's
Okay.
fake data that are realistic. Let me put it this way.
Interesting. I see. And do you think there could be different approaches between different continents right now? Because we're talking about within Europe, we very much GDPR online, and there's lots of restrictions in terms of what we do and how we do it. Do you think there could be possibly a schism in the future?
Well, I wouldn't call it a schism, but indeed, I mean, this has to do about regulation, and different regions in the globe have different regulations. So in some cases, it's much simpler to have access to the data. Some other cases, I mean, some countries are favoring innovation in terms of privacy and security. Some others favor privacy and security in terms of innovation. But I think this is a domain where we can find solutions. It simply needs collaboration and coordination between the involved stakeholders.
Yeah, it's interesting. And moving to you, Riccardo, and it's very similar topic. So as AI will become more embedded into network functions, so how can we ensure that those models are not only effective but also trustworthy? So lots of data is being used for training. Kind of what role does user consent play? So we already touched on this a little bit, but I think in terms of standardization, this is an important topic as well.
Yeah, definitely. I said the lifecycle management of the AI models is quite essential. And that's something that already started from release 18, how to handle the deployment, the monitoring of the performance of the models, how to start the retraining of those models. So basically models can be anywhere in the network, including the user device. So the smartphone, for instance, in the future. For instance, for the air interface optimization. So that's one of the currently studied applications in 3GPP, and there are already prototypes for that. And as mentioned by Alex, a topic related to training the AI models and deploying them is to have efficient data handling. So there will be a lot of data collected by the network from different network entities in the core, in the RAN, in the user equipment even. For training models, it can be within the network functions, within the RAN components, or even in the UE, in the user equipment. So for that, in 6G, and the 6G study item that I mentioned is starting soon, there is mentioned as a new topic. In addition to the data plane and the control plane and the management plane, there will be potentially a data framework that will be used for collecting data for the purpose of, for instance, performing AI training. And that massive amount of data needs to be processed, stored, anonymized potentially. And as you mentioned, also the user consent to use those data is very important, because those will be data collected by the network or by the user equipment in the hands of the user. So let's say the topic user consent is very important. That's also considered as one of the topics in 3GP for already for the current work in 5G Advanced. And just to make an example, I mentioned that there will be in the UE, so in the user equipment, there will be models, AI models used for optimizing the radio interface. So the uses of power, the estimation of the channel, and those data will not be used for a training of the model in the user equipment that doesn't have the power, the compute power, but it will be transferred to some entity, some server in the cloud that belongs to the chipset manufacturer, for instance. So those companies that are manufacturing the modem of the UE or the chipset of the radio interface. So those data will traverse the network using resources in the radio interface to be dispatched to the server for training. And there is also the issue of how having the user consent for using those data that are collected by the user equipment itself. So let's say it's quite a complex topic that involves using resources for collecting data and using information, data that are produced by the user equipment or by the network in relation to sessions performed by the user?
It's quite complex, and I think we are currently at the age when data is the new currency, right? And everything is based on data, and more data we have, more we learn, and kind of it's a self-fulfilling cycle. You need more data to train models and so on, but then you have to handle data with care, I guess. But then with the surge in model complexity and kind of compute intensity, because obviously we have more data, we need to compute more, we need to and around the models. And I think I want to just touch on something that Alex just started with when we're talking about the energy efficiency. So how can we balance AI performance with energy efficiency? And so are there any sort of emerging approaches to decentralizing AI training or interface to address this? Because I think a lot of people are currently a little bit concerned in terms of what sort of impacts AI will have on pretty much having to have more data centers, more power, and so on.
Yeah, very valid question. I think that there's a lot of discussion for this specific topic. First of all, AI can be used, as we were saying before, to reduce the energy consumption in the network. Okay, that's one thing. But on the other thing, this does not come for free, and AI has to consume energy in order to provide the solutions. One potential solution to reduce the cost in terms of energy from AI is indeed to have distributed solutions. But I would go and have federating learning and this kind of approaches. But I would go one step beyond and say the following. AI is on a hype right now. And all the people doing research and research activities in these domains, they always say, okay, I'm going to solve this with a specific AI solution. Now, the actual question is if AI is really needed in all the cases. So we have to balance. If it makes sense to have a very heavy AI-based machine learning solution in order to address a very specific task, whereas if we don't use AI, we will get roughly the same performance, but without having the penalty of energy consumption through the AI. So it's going to be, we need to find a balance on this and make sure that the stakeholders follow a sensible approach on how to use and how much to adopt AI. Also, just to take the opportunity, because I see that we have a couple of questions in the chat, just to try to link these kind of things. So I don't know if you want to introduce the two questions, or I can make the link myself to.
Yes, so we have the questions. Could you please highlight the role of DDPG, Deep Deterministic Policy Gradient, as a reinforcement learning algorithm to train models for tasks like optimizing radio frequency settings? And then the second question is, can you share details on how AI impacts on 6G core architecture, or is it too early?
Okay, Riccardo, if it's okay with you, I will have a first shot on answering this.
Yes.
Really interesting questions. I have to say that I cannot comment for DDPG. I think this is one of the solutions, and there are many solutions. Supervised learning, unsupervised learning, reinforcement learning, and one has to select a specific solution for a specific topic. So I could refer the viewers on the white paper that has been recently released by the SNSJU, where we try to map different set of solutions for different activities, and actually try to monitor how efficient they are in terms of the complexity in the training of the models, on the exchange of information, etc. Now, about the impact of AI on the 6G architecture. First of all, I have been monitoring what is happening, for example, in 3GPP and of course in NORAD for the last year. So as we all know already, there is a significant change in the core network by introducing functions like network data analytic function and the AI functions in the core network. In terms of 6G, the race has started, and I would assume that the key stakeholders have already some ideas on solutions that they are going to discuss in the standardization process. But again, the key trend that I see from operators and vendors for 6G is to target for a sensible design, so we don't have to overcomplex the overall network. We have simply to adopt the things that really make sense. In the 5G, one of the things that going back and evaluating what we have done wrong in 5G, because we have done many things in 5G good. One of the issues that receives a lot of criticism, and I think it's quite true, is the multiple options and the complexity that is not used at the end. So in 6G, we have to be more sensible and very careful of the design choices that we're going to make.
That is very true. Riccardo, do you want to address those questions? Shall I remind you of them?
No, you don't need to remind me the first because I cannot answer that. I don't know what it is. Sorry for that. I'm not an expert, but I can answer very well to the second question because I'm involved in the current discussion on the study item for 6G. So in the study item, there is a very short sentence about studying AI for supporting the functionality of the network and also involving AI agents in the study for 6G, whatever that means. So let's say that the feeling is that there will be a lot of AI in the 6G study, but many companies don't want really to show the cards that they have in their hands at the moment because it's a very sensitive topic and it's related not only to the deployment of AI models in the network, but also to supporting AI-based applications. And as I mentioned, it involves also the definition of a data framework, which will define who is in charge of collecting the data, who is entitled to see those data, who owns the data, and how the consent of using those data is handled. So as I mentioned, there will be potentially a new plane. So as you know, until 6G, there is the control plane, there is the user plane, which is transporting the data for the sessions of the users, the management plane. Currently is discussed in 6G the idea to have an additional plane, which would be the data framework or data plane, which is related to collecting, transferring, processing all the data that will be related to making the network functioning properly. And that will be a huge amount of information that will be transferred and stored. And let's say that it's very important to study the kind of framework, and that will be totally new compared to the previous generations.
Okay. I think we are very shortly out of time. So I just want to post the questions, and I don't know if audiences have any more questions, but please do post them in the Q&A button. So if you were, question to either of you, if you had to pick one AI capability that could become a killer app or a game changer for 6G, what would that be and why? We're still searching for the 5G killer app, but if we think about 6G killer app, what could that be?
Yeah, it's $1 million question, isn't it? I don't have the best answer. I mean, I remember since the era of 3G, we were trying to find, I mean, it's always this question about the killer app. And okay, as we were saying before, we have AI for the network and using the network to support the AI. So in the first in the first case, so using AI in the network, I think the one of the applications of AI that has the high potential to be used is how to optimize the energy consumption of the network. I know it doesn't sound really futuristic, but I think this is something that the operators will go for it. Now, if I could try to find a killer app for AI as a service for the applications, I would consider something like an AI assistant. And I'm saying this is an application. I mean, that's simply on the top of my head. This is just an application that, of course, could do several things, but through the exposure function from the network, could cooperate with the network in order to provide very personalized and very accurate information to the end user. But again, it's just guesses at this point in time.
Yes, and I think we didn't have time to really talk about AI for the network versus network for AI, but that's an important concept. And maybe just if we can take maybe a minute to kind of talk about Open RAN, because is this inherently linked with AI and 6G? It's just for the audience's information.
Yeah, so I will take it. So let's say that Open RAN is part of the picture. There was in March, there was a joint workshop between 3GP and ORAN to define some kind of coordination for the 6G era that is going to start. Because so far there was, of course, a link between 3GP and ORAN, but not a coordination. So it was important to have such kind of discussion. And one of the topics that was explicitly discussed in March, it was AI. So how the two organizations are collaborating on the definition of how AI is used in 6G. And so what it was concluded is that 3GP will specify the lifecycle management for the AI models and the architecture used for AI/ML in 6G. And ORAN will align with the 3GP framework. But at the same time, ORAN will specify specific complementary services and functionalities for AI, like for instance, AI models within the RAN Intelligence Controller, the RIC, or any kind of AI models used in the XApp or RAP for the optimization of the functionality of the radio network. And we know that that's very important because, as you mentioned, the energy efficiency is of the essence to get to meet net zero targets for the mobile network operator. So optimization of how the power is used in the RAN components is very important because the RAN accounts for the large share of the energy consumed by a mobile network. So how those AI models will be used, how much energy they will consume, and how much energy they will allow to save in the operation of the RAN is very important. So ORAN is part of the picture, and we'll work together with 3GP for the 6G standardization.
Thank you, Riccardo. Thank you, Alexandros, and thank you both for your contribution. Unfortunately, we are at time, and this is all we had time for. But I think we discussed quite a bit, talking about data quality, trusting the models, making sure there's energy efficiency. And I think something that you mentioned, Alexandros, there's a need for collaboration, definitely, just to bring all the different ecosystem players together to find the future together and kind of learn from each other and make sure that we're not going to be stuck in another cycle of 5G, 6G, and so on, that we actually achieve something. So thank you both. Thank you to the audience for listening and tuning in, and back to the studio. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.